Welcome to the 17th in a series of shows focused on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization of the United Nations designated Brookline its first age-friendly community in New England. This was a result of the work of the Select Board, Brookline residents, town departments, and volunteer organizations that provided leadership. Today's show, we have three guests. Three guests representing organizations that provide food to those in Brookline who need it. Our guests are Megan Ostrander from Springwell. She's a registered dietitian. She's been at Springwell since 2012, and she's the nutrition department director. The nutrition department oversees a nutrition program that includes home-delivered meals and community dining. Megan's responsibilities are supervision, community outreach, quality assurance, and new program development. And when the food goes out, she samples food for content, taste, presentation, and variety. Welcome, Megan. Elizabeth Bowen is the new executive director of the Brookline Food Pantry. Elizabeth's a BU grad, and her volunteer work eventually led to being an operations manager at the Brookline Food Pantry. When Renee Furman stepped down after 8 years as executive director, they've asked Elizabeth picked up the mantle. And third, we have Patricia Burns, the volunteer coordinator at the Brookline Senior Center. Patricia handles the volunteers and placements for over 400 people. She manages the federally funded Brookline Council on Aging food commodity program. And she trains and supports staff for the Brookline Senior Center weekly food pantry. Welcome, Patricia. We're going to do this a little differently today. We're going to have a panel of three people, and we'll discuss the various aspects of providing food to people in Brookline who need it. Before we start the panel, I'd like to get a little background on each of the organizations that they represent. So who would like to start? Megan?
Sure. So a little bit about Springwell. Springwell is an independent nonprofit designated by the Massachusetts Executive Office on Elder Affairs as an aging services access point for the towns of Belmont, Brookline, Newton Needham, Wellesley, Weston, Waltham, and Watertown. As an aging service access point and an area agency on aging, we provide a wide array of programs for seniors and their caregivers, including the Massachusetts State Subsidized Home Care Program, protective services, and of course, our nutrition program. So we served about 230,000 meals last year. Our nutrition program provides an average of 650 homebound individuals with home-delivered meals per day, and we serve about 200 meals in our community dining programs per day. In Brookline, we deliver an average of 175 meals per day and serve about 50 meals per day in the community dining programs at the Council on Aging and also at Morse Apartments. So all of our meals are planned by dietitians, including me, and meet 1/3 of the dietary reference intakes for older adults. In Brookline, in addition to our regular meals, we also offer therapeutic meals for people who need them, like cardiac and puree, kosher meals, and Chinese meals. In a recent survey, 40% of our participants said that the meal they got comprised over half of the food they ate per day, and 75% stated that the meals helped them remain at home. So our biggest challenge in serving 230,000 meals per year, about 60,000 of which are in Brookline to about 450 people annually, are funding and staffing.
Right.
So we do get government subsidies which help cover the cost, but they don't cover it all. So we rely on generous contributions from members of our community to make up the difference. And while we have a wonderful team of dedicated home-delivered meals drivers and dining site staff, we always need more help, and we do have wonderful volunteers as well. So.
Great. Thank you. That was very useful. Elizabeth, can you tell us about the food pantry?
Sure. John, our mission at the Brookline Food Pantry is to ensure that no one goes to bed hungry.
Right.
We provide free food to individuals and families who live in Brookline. We have 2 locations. Our first pantry is at St. Paul's Episcopal Church,
Okay.
which is at 15 St. Paul Street in Brookline. And our second location is at 55A Egmont Street, one of the Brookline Housing Authority buildings.
How long has the second one been there?
The second one has been there just about 2 years now.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
So at the St. Paul's location, we are open 4 days a week,
Right.
Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday. And at the Egmont Street location, we are just open on Saturdays.
Okay.
So we've figured out that over the past 2 years, we've helped about 920 households to get free food on a regular basis in Brookline.
Right.
We know that about 21% of our clients are senior citizens, and that amounts to about 400 seniors per year. Our concern, Matt, is that so many seniors are on fixed incomes. We want to make sure they have plenty of food at home. We would hate to see them not having enough money to use for things like medical expenses, transportation, heating, and that sort of thing, if they were spending that money on food instead.
Right.
Right. You must be a resident of Brookline to use our pantries. If someone wants to find out how to become available and eligible for our programs, they can either bring in a letter of recommendation from
Where
a
would that be?
professional.
Oh, okay.
It could be a clergy person, a doctor, a Veterans Administration, anyone who can just help us to know why they need some free food. But also, you do not need a letter of recommendation if you have proof of being in any of the state or federal aid programs, such as the Brookline Housing Authority, WIC, senior citizen benefits, Social Security benefits, veterans, all of those things. You can bring any of those in to prove to us that you need help as well.
Without a professional letter?
Without
or
a
anything?
professional letter
Thank
of
you.
recommendation, that's correct. We want to make sure that everyone in the community who can use us knows that we are there for them. We do truly believe that there are people who could use our services and they just don't believe that they're available to them or that they could use it and benefit from it. So we want to make sure that nobody feels embarrassed or anything like that, just to pick up the phone and have a conversation with us about whether they would be available or
Right.
not.
Right.
We also want anyone who's watching the program who might like to help us at the Brookline Food Pantry know how they can do that.
Right.
One way is to volunteer for us at the pantry. We do have over 110 volunteers who help us. We are always looking for more, and it's very easy to go online. Our website does have a volunteer application right on there
good.
that they can fill out, and our volunteer coordinator will get back to that person. We
So the
also,
question I have is the volunteer.
Yes.
Does the can a volunteer be a client also?
a volunteer can be a client also.
thank
We
you.
do have several volunteers who are clients as well.
Excuse
Yes.
me.
Yes, no, that's a good question. We also want people to know that we happily accept monetary donations. In the past year alone, we spent just about $200,000 purchasing food to help our clients and to meet their needs. And it's, it really has risen every single year. So monetary donations are always helpful. And you can do that right online as well through our website if you'd like to use a credit card, or you can just get our address right off the website and send a check. We do also have people who like to do food drives with their organizations, maybe a religious organization, a book club. We've had Girl Scout and Boy Scout troops, that sort of thing.
Right.
So that's wonderful too. We do just point out to people that monetary donations are actually a little bit more helpful to us because we buy most of our food at very reduced prices from the Greater Boston Food Bank.
Oh, sure.
So your dollars will go much further with us than than they
Right.
would at a grocery store.
Right.
And I will just add, we are having our second annual party for the pantry this year on October 20th at the Brookline Teen Center.
Right.
We had one last year. It was our first ever, and we raised over $120,000 for the pantry.
Oh, that's great.
So we really hope this year to do even better, and you will have the ability to buy a ticket if you'd like from our
Right.
website as well.
And if you haven't seen the Teen Center, it's definitely worth seeing.
That is
So,
true.
that's-
That is true.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Patricia, the Senior Center.
Yes, the Brookline Senior Center has been at 93 Winchester Street for past 16 years. Prior to that, the different social workers were at the different housing locations.
Right.
We recently, in February, conducted a food security survey, and we either sent out or gave 550 surveys out,
Okay.
and we received 208 completed ones. 38% is a very big
Right,
number. Of those 208 people who were requested to fill out the surveys,
And the ones that responded.
and
yeah.
the ones that responded to surveys that were in Chinese, Russian, Spanish, and English,
Okay.
55 of the 208 said that they had gone without food for an entire day 1 to more than 10 times in the past 30 days. 38 said that they had gone to bed hungry 1 to 10 times in the last 30 days. And 18 said that they had not had any food for a whole day and night 1 to 10 times in the last 30 days. Now that is really disturbing, especially since the majority of the people who responded were already going to either our food pantry, receiving food commodity from our
Right.
location, and or taking part in the Springwell lunches. So when people think, oh, people in Brookline aren't hungry, this really does show that there is need.
Yeah, right.
Our food pantry is I would say our biggest food program, and we see upwards of, well, yesterday was our biggest number, 107 people came through and actually shopped in a 2.5-hour period. And we're talking shopping carts full of food. Primarily
Great.
the beginning of the day
That's
is
great.
set
I mean,
up and
yeah.
that
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
great.
thing.
I'll ask all three. Well, I'm sorry, but I'd ask all three of you. Do you know what it is that leaves people, not eating when they
Well-
need to and when they want to? Is it in, we have food.
We do.
We
but
have food.
Not, even though we advertise in, in the tab, we advertise in our newsletter, we have it on our website and the town website. People tell us all the time, we didn't know.
Well, yeah.
Or they also, people think that the food pantry, you have to be a senior. We do not ask a question when someone comes in the door for the food pantry. You can be 18, you can drive
Well,
up
sure, we have
in a
students,
Jaguar,
Sure.
you can live in Lexington.
Right.
Do you think stigma prevents people from coming?
I think it does. I think in many ways seniors are proud.
Yes.
They're used to being independent.
Right.
Yes.
They want to be independent, and it's hard for them to accept that they really need food and can't provide it themselves, which is really too bad.
And is there competition between food and what else would be important?
Yes. Well, you have people who are still living in their own home. So then it's real estate taxes,
Yeah, right.
possibly mortgage, and ever increasing prices of medication,
Right.
fuel,
Yeah.
many
gee.
things that cause them to not be able to. Food seems to trickle down to the bottom.
Right.
We find that many of our consumers also have different barriers to food preparation. For many of them, it's difficult to stand in front of a stove for a period of time.
Oh, sure.
Dangerous to lift a pot of hot water.
Absolutely, yeah.
Some of them with arthritis, it's hard to chop something or even open a can.
Describing people I know.
Sure.
Yes.
Things that we take for granted,
Yeah.
so it can be hard. And also to get out and obtain food as well can be a barrier for our homebound people.
Right.
Although for us, the senior center has the elder bus,
Yes.
so people can get a ride to the senior center for all of our food programs and a ride back home. We also have a senior center van, so that will pick people up from
great.
all over Brookline.
And that brings them to the lunch as well,
Yes, it
correct?
does.
That's
Absolutely.
great. Thank you.
That's great. And you drive it to them in some cases where the meals are delivered.
Certainly.
Yeah.
We would like people to come to the dining site.
Right.
It's a more pleasant
Yes.
experience.
Right.
It's a beautiful room. They're eating in company. There's evidence that seniors eat better in the company of others than alone. But for the people that can't make it to the dining site, or the dining sites, we have one in Morse Apartments as well. Yes, we have the home delivered meals.
And in your case, the families, you're really involved with household. You described households.
Right.
So if one person's coming to get food, what does that mean about their partner, someone living with them, or what? I mean, do they get food for both? Do they get food?
Yes.
Are they conscious of it being a household?
Yes.
And being families involved?
That's right. When the first time someone visits us, we find out if they're shopping for a single person, a couple, or a family.
Oh, okay.
And based on that, we help them to get more food, of course, if they have food needs for other
Right,
individuals
that was
in their households as well.
Right.
That's right.
So we'll get back to some of these, but I would like to know what a day is like when you're distributing food. People going to come there, and I'd like them to be comfortable knowing what it is and what it's like. So can you just tell me what your day is like? Who would like to start?
I'll start.
Okay, great.
So for every Tuesday, we have a food pantry. And we have people start coming at 11 in the morning. They can come as early as 11, and they pick a random number out of a pot. And people say, well, why don't you do it, sequentially?
Right.
Well, we did that, except we found that people were lining up at 7 o'clock in the morning
To be first.
outside, and then, they have to go to the bathroom, so they leave, and when they come back, the person say, oh no, you have to
my
stay
God.
here, or, oh, my friend, I'm holding a place for
Yeah,
her.
sure.
So it was not really very efficient.
Right.
So now it's the random selection, and then Tuesday's our busiest day up at Springwell Lunches because they stay for lunch because we are still getting food delivered up until like 1:30, 1:45.
Right.
And then at 2 o'clock we start calling the numbers, 7 at a time. And we can get 107
That's
people
why.
through there between 2 o'clock and 4.
That's why when I come there on Tuesday,
It's packed.
Yes, it's packed, and I see people have eaten. It looked like they'd eaten, and they're staying around. Now I understand.
But
So
it's only part of the people
take food
that
home, yeah.
stay because many of our clients live at 100 Center Street and 112 Center
Okay.
Street, which is right out the back door.
Right.
So they come get their number and they go home.
Yeah, right.
And then they come back at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, we have 29 people who work in that food pantry on Tuesdays. That's on Tuesday. And then we have 2 shifts, 9 to 1 and 1 to 4. 9 to 1 is setting up,
Right.
because we only have that one room for that one day a week.
Got it.
And then the afternoon, people are standing behind the different stations, helping people find pumpernickel bread versus whatever bread
Right.
to move it along, letting them know how many apples can they take, how many of this kind of produce, based on how many numbers we've given out and how much we actually got as a donation
sure you
for
wanna-
that day.
You don't end up with
And then there's
people
the,
without.
and
not-
then
not
there's the
able to-
cleanup.
Right. Oh, sure. Sure.
So
Okay, that's your day. Who wants to go next? Would you like to, Elizabeth?
I'm happy to. Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
Well, the first time someone comes to us, Matt, we give them an identification card so that the next time they come back, they don't have to keep reproving their eligibility every time. So we have them in our system.
Right.
They also take a number and wait, for their turn. And then when our clients enter the pantry, what we think is really great is that we have a wonderful selection for them, and they choose their own items. We know there are pantries in other towns, and even though they're very generous, they do pre-package the goods that
So
a client
nobody
is
knows
able
what-
to take home,
Okay.
just based on what they have available. For us, the client gets to go shopping as
Right.
if they're in a grocery
Well,
store.
that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's also empowering. I mean,
I
if
believe
you're coming
so.
to get food, you want to pick out your food.
That's right, that's right.
I mean,
So
within
they
rules,
start at
but-
tables with toiletries
Right.
and fresh produce and fresh breads. From there, we have a volunteer help them in our refrigerator and freezer area,
Okay.
where they get eggs, cheeses, milk, butter, and then frozen items such as poultry, frozen vegetables, and things like that. And then they are able to go by themselves. We have 3 shopping cabinets of
Right.
dry goods, such as cereals, pastas, canned fruits and vegetables, and canned prepared meals, and they help themselves to those, and then they are done with their day.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. Do you concern yourself? It sounds like you do. Nutrition, is that part of your concerns as you put the food together, or
Yes.
is that? I mean, they're doing their own shopping, so if they
Yes.
could buy all bread and
That's
take
right.
all bread. But they-
We are concerned with that, and while somebody might have a propensity to taking more bread than
Right.
other items, we do find that people are really especially grateful for our selection of fresh fruits and vegetables because, as you know, they can be very expensive in the grocery stores. And we also just find that people are happy to have a good selection of all kinds of healthy foods, poultries and things. And we do work with both the Greater Boston Food Bank as well as a couple of our volunteers do have, education in nutrition. And they let us know when they feel an item might be
Great.
high sodium or something like that might affect our clients adversely.
Good. Can you pick that up?
Oh, sure.
Nutrition.
Sure. So I'll just focus on our Brookline programs.
Okay.
We have
Yes, please.
7 home-delivered meal routes in Brookline. The meals are delivered from 3 different caterers, and the Brookline Housing Authority very generously lets us use a community room in one of their buildings. So we have drivers who show up in the community room. They receive the meals from the caterers. They sort them all out, and then they're on the road usually by 10 o'clock. So our drivers, the routes tend to be pretty heavy, 25 to 30 stops they're doing. And so for many of our
Sounds
consumers,
like Amazon.
yeah, right. For many of our consumers, this is their main social interaction for the day.
Right.
So they can have really wonderful relationships with our home delivered meals drivers, many of whom have been with us for a number of years.
Great.
Yeah, so that's a great program. The dining sites, we do have 2. One is at the Brookline Council on Aging,
Right.
and the other is also a partnership with the Brookline Housing Authority at Morse Apartments.
Now, this one is Tuesday, correct? Is
Actually,
that-
no.
Oh, Monday.
Every
Every
Monday
day.
through Friday.
Oh,
Both-
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Lunch is served Monday through Friday at both programs.
Oh, great.
And we have
Okay.
kind of a light continental breakfast on the weekends at Morse Apartments as
Excellent.
well. Yeah. So participants make a
Where is
reservation.
Morse Apartments? Did you
Longwood
say?
Ave.
Okay.
Yeah, so in Coolidge Corner, Longwood
Okay.
Ave.
Is that 90 Longwood?
It's 90 Longwood,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Thanks.
You're welcome. So participants need to make a reservation. It's not a drop-in program. And they can do that by calling the senior center or calling Springwell. We can get to that. They can choose. We have a hot or a cold lunch option.
Okay.
And then lunch is usually served around noon. The lunch is served by Springwell staff members, but we rely on a number of great volunteers at the senior center that we really appreciate. And then they're welcome to come. It's a beautiful open room, both of the rooms. We have wonderful staff who create a very welcoming, open environment. And the meals, again, are nutritionally balanced.
And I lost it.
Sure. I will add that we do not charge for the meals, but there is a suggested donation as well.
Okay. Special meals. You had mentioned kosher, or is
Sure.
there any other specialty?
Sure. So those are for home delivered meals
Right.
only, but we do have kosher meals. We have Chinese meals, and we have a number of kind of medical diet meals like
Yeah, that's what I was
cardiac,
saying, right.
puree, renal, carbohydrate controlled, things like that.
Great. Okay, so can we move on to a couple of other questions? Is there any requirements for eligibility? Now, there are some. You've said none in your food pantry?
Right.
Great. What about the other one, the other program?
So the food commodity program is a
Right.
federally funded program.
Okay.
And it's monthly, and it's shelf-stable food only.
Okay.
So big boxes of plain cereal, some cooked cereal, 2 big jugs of 100% juice, rice, pasta, a few canned products, jar of peanut butter, that kind of thing. It's 35 pounds per person. We have 65 people, and there is an eligibility for that. You have to be 60 or older.
Okay.
You have to be meet the income requirements of the federal government.
Can you explain the income in any way useful?
For a single person, you cannot have income of more than $1,275 for the month.
Now are you impacted by a house you own that you can't possibly sell, et
Not
cetera?
assets, no.
No assets, okay.
But
good.
income.
Oh, okay. Well, that's reasonable. Okay.
So they have to fill out applications,
right.
and that's for that program.
Okay,
yes.
but if you qualify for that, you certainly
in.
want to get the food. I mean, that's.
And that day is really fun.
I mean, we are in Brookline. I mean,
Because we get all 65 boxes at the senior center, and then we have to deliver to 50 Pleasant Street and 61 Park Street.
okay.
So.
And Elizabeth,
Yes.
any?
As I mentioned, we do require that someone is a resident of Brookline to use our pantry.
Got it.
The only exception to that is that there are some children who attend the Brookline public schools who are not Brookline residents.
Right.
And if their parents would like to shop at the Brookline food pantry, that's fine.
Okay.
We do allow them to
How
do so.
do they know about that?
Usually they find out through the schools.
Okay.
Yes, and we do send a letter home in the springtime just making sure parents do know that. And then in terms of eligibility, again, a lot of people bring a letter of recommendation from a professional,
Yes.
or again, if they are receiving any benefits from the state or federal government, they just have to prove that to us, and that would be
Excellent.
fine as well.
Okay.
Sure. So for the community dining program, there's no eligibility requirement at all. People need to be 60 years of age or older.
Okay.
The exception is if somebody has a spouse or disabled dependent under 60, they can come to the lunch program with them at no cost for the opportunity to donate. If somebody wanted to bring to the lunch program, for example, their home health aide, they could reserve a meal for the home health aide, but somebody would have to purchase the meal at cost, not the donation rate.
Right.
In the Housing Authority, the same rules apply. However, if there's a resident with disabilities in the building under 60, they can come as well.
Okay.
Because of course in public housing, in these buildings, there's a mix of people over 60.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
And with disabilities, right? Yes.
Everybody's eating.
Yes, right. You can't come. So
Yeah,
yes,
right.
so the doors are open to all residents of the building.
Okay.
In that program.
Yes, right.
And for
Great.
home delivered meals, it is a little more complicated. There is an age requirement as well, but also an eligibility requirement. All of our consumers have a care advisor assigned to them
Right.
who determines their eligibility based on limitations, frailty, things like that.
And your food is cooked. You have cooked food. You have all types of food, basically. Cooked
Yes, all the
products.
food is prepared.
Right. It's prepared food. Is yours
It's a
prepared?
prepared
also?
meal.
No, none of ours is prepared,
Right.
so people would bring that to their own homes and prepare it.
Well, we get some donations from Trader Joe's and some from Whole Foods, Love and Spoonfuls, and the Brookline
Oh, great.
Food Co-op. And from Trader Joe's, we do get prepared salads, the ones that
Oh,
are
right,
up by
right.
the door,
Yep.
and wraps
Right.
sometimes. But other than that, it's lots of produce,
Right.
fruits and vegetables, and bread, baked goods, dairy, eggs, and seasonal holiday kinds of things.
Yes, I was going through the pictures and I kept seeing apples.
Oh yes, always apples, which is
They look
fine.
great. They
Yeah.
looked absolutely great. But yeah, that looked good. I guess you answered this, Patricia. I was going to ask you how much of the need is satisfied. I didn't like your answer, but you did
No.
answer that.
It's incredible.
Does
because
anybody? Yeah. Okay.
What about other people who didn't fill out the
Right,
survey?
Right.
So, yes, we got 38% response, which is huge for any survey, but
Right.
those are mostly people who are already taking advantage of one or more of our programs, and they're still not eating adequately. So, yes, I would certainly agree that probably 40% of their nutritional value for the day is covered by their Springwell lunch. But again, not everybody comes for the Springwell
Oh,
lunch.
no.
And,
So,
one meal.
and in one
no matter
meal,
what, no matter
is
what,
not-
the
is
evening
40%.
comes.
Right.
It's not 100%.
It's 40, right.
Yeah.
Right. So anybody else have a comment on that or anything on how much you've actually satisfied of two things? How much you've satisfied of the people you do serve that come regularly? Do you feel that a lot of people come regularly? Are you dealing with people that are, and the second question is, what are you missing? Does anybody have any feeling for what people that are going unserved that are in town? Is there any way we've calculated that or can tell? Or
Well, besides just having ads in the newspaper and the newsletter and on the web and what have you, we have 8 social workers
okay,
with the senior center.
Right.
And they only deal with seniors in the town. And they refer people,
I was just thinking, right.
when they see people and they go out to their homes and do outreach and whatever, if they see a need, they're, trying to get them to come to the senior
Do you have
center.
any way you encourage your current clients to point out others or to refer or to, are they encouraged to refer other people that they know are aware of? Or
Well, we do,
I'm not sure how you do that, right? Certainly, but
well,
and you could show them this show afterwards. It's the areas,
That's right.
not
But I mean,
individuals,
Ruth
but
Ann-
we could deliver them to various sites.
Dobeck, the director of the senior center, always says to everyone who comes to the senior center and all the volunteers, you are our ambassadors in the community.
Great.
So therefore, if you see a new person, if you see somebody who looks lonely, you should be encouraging them, come to the senior
Right.
center.
Right.
And we always say if we can get them there once,
Yep.
we get them hooked.
I like the answer. Yeah, and that will bring them to the others too. There's no question.
Yeah.
Once my sense is once they're involved in getting food when they need it, they're going to go
And the senior center,
one step further on that. If a viewer, someone is watching right now, and says, "I think I'm going to go try that," I have no idea what I was going to eat tonight or tomorrow, and in fact, I was thinking I'd skip it because I have some something left over someplace. But I really could use the food. You know, I've spent my money on medicine,
Right.
or I've spent it on something else. So what are we going to do, right? So what would they do?
For Springwell, our office is in Waltham, so I would just recommend they call Springwell and ask for our information and referral department. Say that they live in Brookline, in this case, and that they're in need of food, and our information and referral department can refer them to our programs, but would also include these programs. So the Springwell information and referral department can be a great one-stop shopping.
And we have that on the credits after, I think. So
Excellent.
That's good.
So I don't have to say the number.
No, I think
That's
nobody's going to
expensive.
get it. Nobody will get it that way. Elizabeth, any suggestions?
Yes. Well, I would say, Matt, that our hours of operation for both locations are on our website.
Right.
So if someone is watching the program and would like to come in, they can see that. Our phone number is also there, so they could call if they have any questions in advance. And I do believe that word of mouth of our clients is one of the major
If
ways
someone
we
walks
get,
if someone walks into
another
15
person
St.
to
Paul,
come. That's right.
would they, you would take care of it, you would make sure that they got,
Absolutely, yes. If for
You're
any
age-friendly?
reason, yes, we're very age friendly there. And if someone comes in the first time and just has questions, but they'd like to shop and they
Right.
don't have their eligibility paperwork with them, we would certainly allow them to shop that day. And when they come back the next time, they can bring the paperwork for us.
and I would hope you, and I know at the Senior Center, you mentioned how they would be brought in, but I would hope all three of you look at the age-friendly sign and keep in mind that people, that was one of my points. I mean, you mentioned how they get there by driving. People who can't drive, I guess, you described that. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. The questions are, the other one I had was any obstacles like language. You mentioned language. Could you expand
Sure.
on that a little bit?
Sure. Well, if somebody were to call Springwell, and I should also add, it doesn't have to be the individual. It can be somebody calling on their behalf. We do have a language line,
Right.
so there is that option. And then we do have staff who speak a number of languages, too many to list. So we do have that option.
Great. And Patricia, you do.
Oh, yes, all of anything that's food related gets translated into all of the languages. But also, I have made up a list of food resources in Brookline, and obviously you're on it.
So what about the relationships to two other organizations, the religious organizations, the nonprofits, the other people that are involved with food at all, JFCS? There's all various groups I've seen that are involved with food. How do you guys relate to them at all? Do you keep track of them, or? Well, you described some.
We
You said,
get
stores
we
you get food from.
we get referrals sometimes from some of these other organizations.
Do you?
Yeah, people, the social workers at 100 Center Street and 1550 Beacon Street and all of those places know. They know all of us.
Yeah, right.
And they, and
imagine.
they refer as well.
That's right.
Yeah, I imagine that's so. We could go on and on. I really want to encourage anybody watching this that does in any way need food. You're telling me they're welcome, and I believe that. And from what I've seen at the Senior Center and what I've heard about from St. Paul, and I know Springwell, I've seen meals delivered actually to areas where I'm at. I think they will be welcome. You are age friendly. I think you also welcome people with disabilities, and that any concern there, I know the Senior Center does. So I just want to encourage everybody to not hesitate. If you need one time you can't get food, this month, this week, contact any of these people, and don't hesitate to come in, right?
Good advice.
Okay. Am I missing anything else? Or is, we have about 10 seconds.
You can come to lunch.
I'll do that one.
You should come join us.
I will.
We would love to have you.
Okay, I will do that one. That's fine. Okay, well, this has been very informative, extremely informative, to me anyway. The program will be rebroadcast several times. The program's also available on the Brookline Can website, and it's available and will be seen on Facebook, the Brookline Can Facebook and Twitter accounts. I noticed Springwell tended to advertise it ahead of time, so I'm guessing they will again. And don't hesitate to come physically to any of these areas to find out more about it. As a donor, as someone who uses, as a client, or as just somebody that's interested in what's happening in Brookline.
Right. Potential
Thank you.
volunteer.
Yes,
Thank you.
volunteer.
Thank you.
Thank you.